Everybody has a challenging life, all right? Everybody has a challenging life. So don't tell me that just because you have a heart or I have a heart, that you don't get to choose what you do with that life. Hey, my name is Felix, and welcome to the channel. I talk about faith, about sexuality, gender, as well as what it's like to be a man who also has same-sex attractions. I don't really like labels as a Gen Zer, but I definitely want to be able to share this because I know that there's some young dude like myself growing up where he's white or Asian or black, doesn't really matter, but when you feel out of sorts in a place of religion, a church, and you don't have anyone to go to oftentimes, it's really hard to be able to live inside your own body, your own mind, and it can feel often very, very lonely. So just want to be able to make this video to be able to reach out to those people who may feel the same way. I wouldn't really classify myself as anything other than a man who loves Jesus, who loves the Lord, but I do know that it takes a lot of vulnerability at times. So I'm going to share some of my big fears, top 5 big fears when it comes to sharing about my sexuality and faith. Because one, I think that as Americans, modern people, we do a horrible job of doing that. And often you're just pegged as LGBTQ or as a self-loathing Christian when you come out about anything related to your sexuality. So what was it like growing up as Felix? As a Asian growing up in Midwest America, I went by the name of John. My parents gave me that name from a very young age. I didn't think of anything else. I was just living my life, going through elementary school, making friends like most people. And I always liked girls. Always. I never thought about being gay or bisexual or anything else. I just always liked girls. But I always felt a little bit more effeminate, like I wasn't out there fishing, shooting, hunting, playing basketball like the other guys. So I always felt a little bit out of sorts in that way. Except my skills and my strength came from a place of verbal intelligence, emotional intelligence. I definitely was a lot more sensitive than most guys. As you can see, even by design of my environment, I love art, and so I'm a painter, I do photography. And I didn't always have like a deep voice, even as I have now, but how I developed, it took a lot more, I think, years developing into my masculinity because a lot of guys like myself may not have that strong father figure or a masculine figure to be able to kind of emulate. And I didn't really see a lot of that in the silver screen or TVs and such. Guys that I felt like represented me and that I wanted to become, that were traditionally masculine, healthy, not toxic masculine or just bigoted and arrogant and a roughhouser and a bully. That's kind of how I equated masculinity. Masculinity was bad in my culture in some ways. And so I just always looked up more so to women and girls, and it was just a lot easier going through elementary school, middle school. I had guy friends, I had lady friends, and I even went on dates with girls. But funny enough, looking back in high school, one of the girls that I dated, she turned out to be a lesbian, so that makes a lot of sense. All very beautiful girls, but in some ways they probably also weren't the most traditional type of girls, right? Very pretty, effeminate even, but just a little bit more alternative. And I would say that's kind of where I was before any of this LGBTQ stuff kind of blew up. I would say my first fear whenever I come out about my story is just going to be, what will other people think? And I know that's just kind of like very basic, but what will other people feel? And that basic discomfort, because I'm so empathic, I hate when I make other people feel uncomfortable. And so naturally you want to hide it, you want to keep it very private. And the reason why I'm doing this video is because there are so many people like myself out there that I know who walk down the streets right next to me, or who just work with you, go to the gym with you, have kids and families of their own, but they secretly kind of struggle in this area. And that's one of my top fears, is just like sharing this and for people not knowing how to respond. Most of the time, there's some very caring people at church, at school, at work, who kind of had some glimpse of like, okay, well, John growing up was not the most masculine guy, and so they may think certain things, but you never want to judge someone right off the bat. So for me, I found that it was just easier to kind of play off the alternative K-pop style and just kind of I'm different because I'm Asian. I'm different because I don't like all the right sports. I played tennis, I ran track, I like art, you know, it was just part of my personality. And the gay jokes aside, every guy gets it, you know, it just kind of amps them up in their masculinity, whether you are man enough or you're not man enough. And a lot of the times I just never felt like I was quite man enough. And so my first fear is just a basic reaction from most people, my family, my friends, especially my family because they're Christian. I didn't grow up Christian, but when I came to faith, I would say at the end of high school and college, I really started to think deeply about what my faith meant, about my politics, my social beliefs, about marriage. And I was very pro-gay marriage. And into the years of becoming a Christian, especially in college, I just found out like, you know what? I think that there are probably more healthier forms of marriage than others. And I would say alternative modern conceptions of marriage are unhealthy a lot of the times. I believe that the nuclear family is the most healthiest, meaning a biological male, female in the home taking care of their kids is the ideal. Now, besides that, I know that's a whole nother video for another day. I even have another video, I can link that below, that talks about the reasons why I believe in that and some of the reasoning I used to use to be able to back up the concept of gay marriage. But my second fear would just be marriage itself. I would say like getting married is scary enough. I think for a lot of us commitment is hard, but for myself, I just think, well, what would marriage look like? What would getting married to a woman, which is my ideal, maybe that's different from you, but my ideal as a bisexual or no label man and his in orientation, his alternative orientation is just how do I love a woman who may be straight, most women are, and how do I agree to the terms of marriage, the fidelity of marriage, the value of marriage, and the sexual union of marriage if I don't necessarily know that I'm going to always be, you know, sexually aroused with my wife. And I am. I mean, I definitely want to find a woman who I find physically and sexually attractive, which there are plenty of women that I find physically and sexually attractive, don't get me wrong, but just a little bit on how I perceive men and women. Men, I can find physically attractive and even sexually attractive, but there's a point at which I just don't find them attractive enough to marry them, if that makes sense. Maybe when I was in middle school and high school, I was questioning a lot more things and I thought like, whoa, I could be married to a dude one day. Like I am attracted enough. But when I think about it, like I want to have kids. I want to have somebody who makes me feel like a man. I want to be able to do more in life that requires a woman, you know, an equal partner who also has the capabilities, the biology and the personality that's different from mine. And there are some parts of me, again, more effeminate, but it takes a certain type of woman rather than a man that will bring out, I would say, the masculine parts of me that I know that need to be there. So if you were like me growing up in middle school, high school, I didn't think about any of that stuff. Most kids don't think about their finances or the meaning of marriage and the discipline and the fidelity of marriage. They just think about the lovey-dovey romantic stuff, the things that you're supposed to feel. And that's awesome. I'm grateful for all the chemistry and the dopamine rush when you first love someone or first have a crush on someone. And I've had that with guys and girls. Girls and guys have felt that towards me. They've confessed their feelings towards me. I know that I'm capable of doing it, but the biggest fear for me about marriage is like, is it sustainable? Is it sustainable? So that brings me to dating, because you can't really get to marriage in this culture, in this day and age, without dating. Dating is hard, guys. Dating can be tricky, and sometimes we overcomplicate it. I know it's a very messy topic, but you know, I'm on the dating apps, Hinge and Bumble at times, Tinder, and I think you put out what you want to be able to receive back. I think that's the wisdom that I always try to live by. So trying to be very transparent, honest. I don't like labels, so I don't put like bisexual or anything else, or even straight, even if I'm trying to just pursue women. I've even checked out, you know, the guys on that side, and it's just like always gross in my opinion. I don't know why, but maybe that's the innate homophobia, not internalized, but just like the innate like homophobia that I feel like as a man I should be attracted to women. Again, whatever your 2 cents on that, feel free to put in the comments down below. Is it internalized? Is it innate? I don't really care, honestly. But I just do have that, and I don't think I can pursue a man in that way, like I said previously. So with women, though, when I'm pursuing a woman, of course you take them on a date. You talk about your values, your politics, your anecdotes, background stories, what you think is funny and entertaining, what do you like to watch, what do you like to read. And when I'm doing all of that, like it's enjoyable. I've been on dates with girls I find very attractive, some less, some more. But when it comes to the topic of sexuality, I know that a lot of them do care about people who are gay or people who are bisexual, LGBTQ, and yeah, I would say the majority of girls I've been on dates with are Christian. And so I would say, apart from your values, I think there has to be a chemistry. And when I sense that chemistry, I want to pursue this woman. My fear is that they are just going to reject me. I think rejection is hard for everybody. I think we all want to be loved and accepted for who we are. And so naturally, we kind of like shut away from the idea or possibility of going on a second date or even going on a date at all, because you don't want to let that person down. And so for me, I just want to encourage the person on the other side of the screen here, like, whatever you want to achieve for yourself, make sure you're putting it out there first. Make sure that you're speaking it, you're believing for it, for the other person too, because like you can't believe for an atheist, their faith if it's never there in the first place. Like, I mean, like you can't have them marry you or want to go on a date with you simply because they have a very alternate view of the world. And if you're going to be starting from that place of that foundation, it's going to be very, very hard to be able to come around 180 and believe in a God in which you worship or your religious rites and beliefs if all their world is surrounded by their atheism or people that think and view the world the way that they do. So I would say there's got to be a symbiotic level of thinking, of relating that needs to happen. And oftentimes, because I am bisexual or otherwise, alternate in my sexuality, it's really hard. It's really hard to find somebody that can level with you, fully comprehend and understand, and want to even achieve that type of family structure one day with you. So there's a lot of variables, and I think one of the best advice that I've gotten from multiple people is just don't overthink it. Don't think too much or dwell too much on the dating piece too. Like, what you want to achieve. There's going to be a lot of no's, and that's okay. No's are good as well. It shouldn't be used to demean you, your value, and your worth. Although it feels like it hurts your ego, you need to know that the more that you go deeper, the better, the more refined your character and your interests and the person that you're looking for is going to be. It's going to narrow you down rather than bring you down, right? That's how I like to look at it. Well, given where I'm at, I'm not married, so I'm not saying that I've been the most successful, but for the people that I've talked to, the podcasts I've listened to, I just always find that being authentic and true to yourself while you're pursuing someone and having that good communication is so necessary if you're going to be able to make a successful marriage one day. So that's my third fear. Fourth fear is just church. Church can be scary. I am probably one of the loudest people around church. I love talking to people. I love making people feel welcome. People will be surprised when they hear that, whoa, Felix, that's the new name that I've gone by for the past 2 years because I've gone through some serious spiritual transformations in my life. When I was just 24 or 25, I got accepted into a PhD, and this whole cancellation scandal, a person in the interwebs said that I was a transphobe. And so effectively, it got me canceled from a psychology lab that I was working at. And so the complications of my story make it very, very fun, as you can probably already tell. But after 2 years of living in the South at a university that's very predominantly, I would say, conservative, but then the psychology department being very, very left and liberal, I just always felt out of sorts, leaving behind my Christianity at the door in some ways, being more quiet about that, feeling rejected or ashamed for being a Christian in a space like that, the liberal bubble at this university, and then going to church where it's very, very uptight Christians who are a little bit prudish and don't really talk about the beneath the surface level rich things that I think the most, I would say, mature, well-rounded people that I've ever met are able to. And I miss that. I hail from Chicago, Michigan, New York, so I've always wanted to be able to connect deeply with people. And so currently I live in Atlanta. I go to an amazing church and I serve there, but it is very, very hard, I would say, talking about the honest things about your sexuality. And it's not the most important for me, but the honest things that make you you, you can't bring up because people don't know how to talk about it, or they're ashamed, or they're scared, or they're potentially afraid of offending you. And how far should you go? Because is it that important to you? Is it not important? And it's just like a maze, a labyrinth, right, of a topic that no one wants to get lost in, because it's too sensitive. It's not sensitive the way that you're portraying it, or that the way that you talk about it. So we need to be able to have spaces that do it well. I know plenty of guys, spiritual leaders that I think of that have done it well. But I would say, because my fear is primarily I am going to be rejected by church people, and so I will give up on my faith. That leads to my fifth and final fear of being somebody who you could say is a sexual minority, whatever label you want to use. I don't really care. But my final fear of being a Christian who has same-sex attractions in the church and who's more vocal about it as well is losing my faith completely. I don't go about the typical evangelical talking point about salvation of once saved, always saved. I believe that's heretical. I believe that people can still choose if they want to follow Jesus for the rest of their lives. I think that there are clearly an abundance of biblical evidence for those who are Christians watching that if you want to leave behind Christ, you can. And he will make it so that you will have every opportunity to choose him over and over again, as God himself in Jesus and Holy Spirit chooses you over and over and over again, because he is faithful even when we are faithless. I believe that because I've seen people walk away from faith, very seasoned pastors, leaders, disciplers, mentors, even of mine, who have walked away from scriptural truth. So if we're going to be deceived, at what point am I going to be deceived so much or disillusioned about the church that I'm going to leave behind my faith completely, my relationship with God completely, because I feel inadequate or rejected from the church? And my place in the church is just as a political, social pundit for the cause of saying no to gay marriage, rather than, and that's not all, because I believe in the sacraments of Holy Communion. I uphold the value of marriage in its entirety, not just the prohibitions. I believe in life and pro-life values. I believe in all these other things, but this one thing that I think has gotten to me, and it's been a chink in my armor again and again, is my relationships with other people and the church specifically, and that one day it would affect my relationship with God himself. And that's something that I don't want. So whoever's watching this, if you care about your faith, or you don't have any faith, but you have a friend that may be struggling with this, please share this with them. Let them know that they're not alone. Let them know that things do get better, even when there are days when I'm like, life is really, really hard. I don't know how to continue. I wish that I could just sleep and never wake up. I wish I wasn't alive. I wish that God had taken this life from me from the very start in my mother's womb, because it's confusing, perplexing, and lonely. Very, very, very lonely. But I want you to know that you're not alone, because God does love you. God does care for you, whether you believe that or know that right now. I would say for those of us who are Christian and who struggle with our orientation, there is no shame in Christ Jesus. There is no condemnation. So long as we trust and believe him as Lord, there is no shame. There is no condemnation. And that's a hard truth to live by, especially in a world where you are racked with political division, social division, discrimination, prejudice. Don't let yourself become prejudiced to yourself. I would say that to you, whoever's watching and listening. Don't let yourself become prejudiced to yourself. It will kill you. And I want you to be able to thrive and live the best life that you possibly can. Everybody has a challenging life, all right? Everybody has a challenging life. So don't tell me that just because you have a heart, or I have a heart, that you don't get to choose what you do with that life. Play your cards well. I love you guys, and I really appreciate you listening. Please give me a follow so that we can stay in touch. I really want to be able to share more of my personal life because I think that there's a world out there that is being created by what we speak, say, and show. And there's a lot of this within the church, within broader society, that needs to be able to talk about marriage and sexuality and gender and the values of what it means to be a man. And I have a podcast that I shared stories and testimonies and experiences, research with in my channel, Felix Outs the World, previously John Chen Outs the World. And I can't wait to share more of myself with you. And I know that God has so much more for both of us, for me, for you. God bless.